They studied the blue-green world from orbit, their vast carriers drifting like quiet gods above the atmosphere. Sensors mapped oceans and cities, measuring heat signatures, language clusters, and patterns of behavior. To the VYRKL Dominion, humanity was a curiosity, an unstable, intelligent primate species that had somehow learned to split atoms and shout into the void. They called Earth Sector 9 Blue, a designation that stripped it of identity. It was just another unclaimed system with minerals, biomass, and water. A resource, not a civilization. Within the observation decks of the flagship Vorsha, officers gathered around translucent displays. Holograms projected images of human life, children chasing drones in city parks, ships leaving Mars orbit, celebrations in light-filled streets. The aliens spoke of them with detached amusement. Emotional creatures, one said. They war even among themselves. Another responded. All species burn their youth before they learn peace. The senior analyst, an old strategist named Calith, watched longer than the others. His eyes traced the energy readings rising from human cities, the erratic frequencies of their broadcasts. They are loud, he murmured, too loud for a species so small. For a century, the Dominion had expanded without challenge. Worlds fell silent before their fleets. Empires bent the knee or vanished beneath plasma fire. Humanity's broadcasts reached them by chance, a ripple through subspace. They listened first out of curiosity, then opportunity. Reports described a planet rich in isotopes, surrounded by unclaimed moons and stations. Yet what drew attention most was humanity's defiance of its own extinction. They had burned their atmosphere, poisoned their oceans, and still thrived. A species that survived self-destruction intrigued the Council but did not impress it. The VYRKL debated their next step in a chamber the size of a stadium. Voices echoed across polished stone. They have colonies, one said, and orbital assets. They could resist. Another countered. Primitive resistance. They have not achieved unified governance. Their fleets are small, disorganized. The consensus formed swiftly. Humanity would be pacified, its colonies annexed, its people integrated or displaced. It was not hatred, it was arithmetic. Resources in, chaos out. From Earth, the humans had no idea they were being discussed. They were busy celebrating a decade of peace after internal conflicts. Trade routes between Luna and Mars were open again. Children born on Mars called two worlds home. Humanity's optimism bloomed just as the fleet above finalized invasion vectors. The irony escaped everyone but Calith, who watched the tiny planet spin below him. They believe peace is their natural state, he said softly. It is a pleasant delusion. The order came without ceremony. A line of silver vessels broke formation and descended into the void. The first targets were not cities, but relay stations, communication nodes orbiting Mars and the Moon. The Dominion believed in silent wars. Cut the voice, then crush the heart. The strikes were surgical and efficient. Energy beams lanced through the dark, tearing satellites apart like paper. A few transmissions escaped, confused and fragmentary, bursts of static and half-finished words. On Mars, a mining settlement saw the first fire in the sky. Workers pointed upward, thinking it a meteor. Then the horizon turned white. The colony dome shattered, the atmosphere vented, and for the first time in 2 centuries, Martian soil drank blood. On Earth, monitoring stations detected irregular energy signatures and went on alert. The data confused them, too fast, too precise, unlike anything known. Within hours, human channels filled with rumors, an accident, a weapon test, an alien signal. Calith watched the first images of destruction and felt no triumph. They will retaliate, he said. His subordinates laughed. With what, Commander? Fireworks? He turned away. With desperation. That is always the most dangerous kind. In the Dominion's archives, the event was logged as Operation Dawn Sweep. The report's final note read, resistance probability, negligible. But on the dying surface of Mars, a single emergency transmission escaped through fractured relays. It carried the voice of a young communications officer, trembling but unbroken. The message was meant as a distress call, yet it became prophecy. "This is Captain Ria Solari of Mars Station Theta. To whoever hears this, they attacked our home." The words were faint, lost in static, but they would travel farther than the Dominion imagined. For now, the VYRKO continued their silent advance, confident in their supremacy. They did not understand that the phrase, "our home," carried more power than their entire fleet. They did not yet know that the quiet world below was about to wake. And in that awakening, history would turn. The colony lay in silence. Dust drifted where cities had stood, and the wind carried no sound except the hiss of burning metal. Across the Martian horizon, fragments of shattered domes reflected the sun like broken glass. The first human war in centuries had begun, and most people still did not know it. Emergency networks collapsed under static. Every major channel carried the same garbled message, Captain Ria Solari's broadcast, replaying endlessly through damaged relays. Her voice was strained, raw, filled with something neither rage nor despair but both at once. "You attacked our home?" At first, few believed it. The governments on Earth called it a mining accident. Luna authorities denied alien involvement. But as ships failed to return and relay stations vanished from orbit, disbelief turned to dread. The images that reached Earth were almost too distant to process. Flashes of white across Martian skies, debris fields where colonies had been. Millions stared in silence as transmissions cut out mid-sentence. Humanity, for all its progress, suddenly felt small again. In the command centers beneath Earth's crust, military councils reassembled protocols that had been abandoned for peace. Fleets that were once survey expeditions were rearmed. Old defense treaties were dusted off, their signatures still intact but their meaning forgotten. Scientists deciphered the attack signatures. Plasma yields beyond any human design, frequencies not of human origin. The conclusion was undeniable. The Dominion was real, and it had come without warning. Ria Solari's message spread faster than any order. Within hours, every surviving outpost had replayed it. By dawn, it had reached civilian networks, streaming through pirate channels and underground relays. The phrase became a unifying pulse. Posters, banners, recruitment drives, all bore the same words. Humanity, fragmented for centuries, now spoke in one voice. Politicians tried to control the narrative, but the people had already chosen their symbol. Not a flag, not a planet, just a sentence uttered in grief and fury. Meanwhile, the Dominion watched from afar, confused by the response. Their analysts studied human behavior and found no logic. "They have no central command," one strategist said. "They act from emotion." Another countered. "Emotion is chaos. Chaos is weakness." But their data told a different story. Instead of retreating, humans adapted. Instead of surrendering, they retaliated with what they had: small strikes, unpredictable tactics, sheer will. Within weeks, Dominion patrols began disappearing. Automated cargo drones exploded mid-flight. Listening posts found their signals jammed by improvised human codes. The humans were fighting a war they could not win on paper, but numbers meant nothing against desperation. Dominion records began to note disproportionate retaliation efficiency. It was the first time the word fear appeared in their tactical reports. On Earth, the mourning never stopped, but neither did the rebuilding. Volunteers left for the frontiers. Children wrote letters to soldiers they would never meet. A culture once divided by borders found unity in survival. Ria Solari, missing and presumed dead, became the face of the resistance. Her voice, cracked, human, defiant, played in every bunker and broadcast. Commanders quoted her words before every engagement, not as an order, but as a reminder. The Dominion underestimated the meaning of home. They believed in territory and conquest. Humans believed in belonging. To them, home was not soil or air but connection, the people who stood beside them, the memories they refused to lose. And when that was threatened, they became something unrecognizable to their enemies. As the Dominion fleet advanced toward Earth's orbit, human transmissions multiplied rather than ceased. Each new frequency carried fragments of a growing defiance, laughter over static, soldiers singing through damaged helmets, civilians sending farewell messages to the stars. It made no tactical sense. It terrified the invaders more than any weapon. The first coordinated counterattack was launched not from a military base but from a cluster of mining rigs on the asteroid belt. Civilians turned engineers overnight, converting drill ships into rail guns. They struck a supply convoy and vanished before detection. Dominion Command called it luck. Their scientists called it impossible. Humanity called it the beginning. The war had truly started the moment one human voice refused to go silent. What followed was not vengeance but awakening. The Dominion had sought to erase a species. Instead, they had unified it. And across the void, their enemies listened as that same human broadcast echoed once more, clearer than before, rebroadcast by hundreds of hacked channels, translated into alien frequencies, a warning carved into the noise of space itself. You attacked our home? We are coming. Humanity learned faster than the Dominion believed possible. The first months were chaos, lost fleets, scrambled communications, shattered morale, but chaos was familiar ground. Out of it, humans built strategy. Every mining rig became a fortress, every cargo ship a potential weapon. The engineers of Earth and Mars linked their knowledge across broken channels, designing weapons out of scrap and theory. Where the Dominion saw ruins, humans saw resources. The first major shift came when a team of civilian hackers intercepted a Dominion supply code. They deciphered its encryption by using fragments of old Earth languages, confusing the invaders' algorithms that relied on pure logic. That single act rerouted entire convoys into ambush zones. The Dominion called it anomalous interference. Humanity called it adaptation. For the first time, their attacks drew blood. In every shattered city, something primitive awoke, a drive that had nothing to do with strategy or survival. People refused to hide. Artists painted the names of lost colonies across ruined walls. Pilots volunteered for suicide runs just to buy minutes for evacuation ships. Their defiance wasn't born of hope, it was defiance for its own sake, raw and burning. The Dominion couldn't predict it, couldn't calculate it, couldn't replicate it. Logic faltered before emotion. The newly formed Unified Command didn't function like a conventional government. It was a network of independent cells, scientists, soldiers, refugees, smugglers, all operating under one shared truth: no one would surrender. Orders weren't issued from the top, they spread virally through trust. It was disorganized brilliance, a living organism that thought through instinct and connection. Dominion strategists called it combat entropy, unaware that entropy was precisely what humans excelled at controlling. The Battle of the Belt defined this new warfare. Human fleets, disguised among asteroid debris, launched synchronized volleys of electromagnetic slugs. The Dominion ships, designed for symmetrical combat and predictable opponents, never saw it coming. The explosion was visible from Mars, dozens of alien vessels reduced to drifting wrecks. The victory was small by numbers, but it shattered the illusion of Dominion invulnerability. The aliens had never lost a battle to a species they considered lesser. Reports from captured Dominion officers revealed growing confusion among their ranks. They described humans as irrationally efficient, culturally unstable, and infectiously motivated. Their soldiers began to hesitate, not out of fear of death but fear of fighting something that refused to break. In interrogation logs, one Dominion engineer muttered, "They fight like they've already died." Meanwhile, Rhea Solari's legend grew. Though presumed dead, intercepted Dominion messages hinted at her survival. Her original transmission became more than a warning, it became doctrine. Recruits carried it engraved on their armor. Commanders opened every mission briefing with her final line. The phrase "you attacked our home" evolved into a vow, a shared identity that transcended nationality or species. Humanity no longer fought for Earth alone, it fought for the right to exist without being measured by another's standard. In laboratories hidden beneath burned-out cities, physicists and biologists worked side by side. They studied captured Dominion technology and found it elegant yet predictable, machines built for perfection, incapable of improvisation. Humans began integrating chaos into their designs: unstable plasma drives, adaptive targeting, weapons that reprogrammed themselves mid-battle. Dominion fleets couldn't adapt fast enough. Each encounter became more unpredictable, more dangerous. The war was no longer about defense. Humanity had shifted to offense. Small strike groups jumped behind enemy lines, disabling power cores and supply networks. Captured Dominion ships were stripped and rebuilt under human control. The invaders' communication channels became riddled with false signals, many mimicking Dominion distress calls. The confusion spread like infection. For the first time, the Dominion Council convened in panic. They could crush any single world, yet the humans made them fight everywhere at once. Entire sectors went dark. Their empire, once flawless, began to fracture under the weight of its own certainty. To the humans, victory was still distant, but fear had changed sides. They no longer fought as prey but as predators. Every strike, every sacrifice was a declaration: humanity would not vanish quietly. In war reports written by surviving Dominion tacticians, a single note appeared again and again, an acknowledgement not of defeat, but of revelation. "They do not fight for conquest," one wrote, "nor survival. They fight because something within them refuses to yield. We have no word for it. But humans did. They called it being home." The war reached a point where neither side could claim control. Entire sectors burned, fleets drifted like ghosts among wreckage, and the Dominion's command structure began to fracture under the strain of endless resistance. Their databases were overflowing with contradictions. Each report insisted the humans should have been defeated, yet the humans refused to vanish. Every loss they endured became fuel, every death another reason to strike harder. They were not following orders anymore, they were following conviction. Rhea Solari resurfaced without announcement. Her ship, long presumed destroyed, reappeared from dark space carrying survivors and data stolen from the Dominion's main logistics core. Her return ignited a surge of morale that no speech could have matched. When she spoke, her voice was steady, stripped of anger but sharpened by purpose. She reminded humanity of what they had already become. They were no longer victims, nor rebels. They were defenders of something that no empire could quantify. Her words spread through the fleet unaltered. "Home is not where you live. It's what you stand for." The Dominion, desperate to end the conflict, sent an envoy to negotiate. It was not an act of mercy but of exhaustion. Their war engines required resources faster than they could harvest them, and their once unified empire had begun questioning the endless campaign. The meeting took place through holographic transmission. Rhea and the Dominion strategist Calith, the same who had once predicted her species would fold. His tone carried no arrogance now, only fatigue and bewilderment. He demanded surrender in exchange for limited survival. He promised humanity could keep its planet under Dominion supervision, that its people would be spared extinction. Rhea listened in silence until he finished, then asked him a single question. "Do you know what it means to attack a home?" Calith hesitated. To him, home was a physical structure, a point of origin. To her, it was memory, love, and belonging. She told him the Dominion had never understood the concept because they had outgrown emotion in pursuit of perfection. "You cannot break what you do not understand," she said quietly. Calith argued that the war was illogical, that billions had died for pride. She answered that logic had no place where existence itself was challenged. "You attack the one thing that gives meaning to life," she said. "Now you face a species that has nothing left to fear." Her voice did not rise, it didn't need to. The power in her words came from truth, not volume. As they spoke, human forces struck deep within Dominion territory. They liberated the first colony the aliens had conquered, a symbolic victory that rippled across the stars. Dominion channels erupted in confusion. Their soldiers began to question their commanders. The invincible hierarchy started to erode, not through superior weapons but through doubt. Calith watched the reports appear mid-conversation. His composure faltered. "You cannot win," he whispered, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Rhea's expression softened, not in pity but in understanding. "We already have. she replied. You taught us what it means to lose everything, and we turned it into strength. We are not fighting for conquest. We are reminding you what it means to feel. The communication ended, not with a declaration of peace but with silence, the kind that precedes change. The Dominion retreated from several fronts within the week, claiming strategic withdrawal, but their soldiers knew the truth. They had faced something that fought beyond reason, beyond strategy. They had faced a species that believed in something larger than survival. For the first time in the Dominion's long history, an enemy had made them question their purpose. They realized that their empire, vast as it was, had built everything except meaning. Humanity had shown them that even a species of fragile flesh could wield conviction stronger than any weapon. Rhea Solari's name became a vow whispered across every fleet. Her question, "Do you know what it means to attack a home?" became the heartbeat of a civilization that refused to bow. And in the silence left after the transmission ended, the Dominion finally understood that the humans had never been defending a planet. They had been defending the very idea of belonging itself. Centuries passed, and the war that once scarred the stars became legend. The Dominion no longer existed as an empire. Its name survived only in history archives and the fragments of languages spoken by the scattered descendants of its people. In their place rose something different, a network of worlds bound not by conquest but by respect for what humanity had taught them. The memory of Earth's defiance lingered across every species that survived those years. The humans had changed the definition of power. The voice that had begun it all endured. Rhea Solari's transmission was preserved in every major academy, studied not as a battle cry but as a philosophy. Her words were simple, yet no civilization had forgotten them. You attacked our home? Scholars debated their meaning for generations. Some argued it was a warning, others said it was a revelation. To humanity it was either. It was a truth they had carried since the first fire they ever built. Home was not a structure to defend, but a reason to live. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes was not peaceful, but it was aware. The Dominion's descendants, now calling themselves the HFY remnants, rebuilt under human guidance. They no longer worshipped perfection, they sought understanding. Their chronicles describe the humans as paradoxes, violent yet compassionate, reckless yet deliberate. One HFY philosopher wrote, "They conquered us without intending to. They fought not to rule but to remind the universe that life's worth cannot be measured." Humanity did not claim the ruins of their enemy. They rebuilt what they could and moved beyond the need for dominance. New colonies grew around stars once controlled by the Dominion, not as banners of victory but as symbols of coexistence. Monuments stood in silent places where ships once burned, each engraved with the same phrase in 100 languages, for those who fought because they had a home to protect. Centuries blurred into millennia. Humans changed, adapted, expanded, but the story of Rhea Solari remained untouched. Children on distant worlds learned her name before they learned the constellations. Her voice, preserved in countless archives, played on remembrance days when the stars dimmed in tribute. Even beings who had never seen Earth or understood human language recognized the tone, the quiet defiance, the unbreakable warmth beneath it. Long after the last veteran's bones turned to dust, a HFY historian named Catherine stood before the old Earth monument. The planet had healed from its scars. The forest had reclaimed the land where cities once burned. Catherine spoke into the wind, recording the final entry for a history that began in blood. He described how the Dominion's failure had given birth to a greater unity than any treaty could have forged. Humanity's influence had spread not through rule, but through empathy. They had taught an entire galaxy what it meant to belong somewhere, and to fight for that belonging with every breath. Catherine's voice trembled as he repeated the phrase that had haunted his people for generations. "You attacked our home," he whispered. "We thought it was a threat. Now I know it was a confession of love." His words were transmitted to the Galactic Archive, where they joined the unbroken record of voices that defined that age. From orbit, Earth appeared small, almost fragile. Yet every traveler who gazed upon it felt the same unexplainable pull, a sense of connection that transcended species and time. The planet that once stood alone had become the moral axis of the stars. No empire had dared repeat the Dominion's mistake. The memory of human resistance had become a deterrent stronger than any weapon. The final entry in the archive, written by an anonymous observer centuries later, summarized what no analysis could capture. When the humans spoke of home, they spoke of life itself. To threaten it was to awaken something eternal. The line echoed through every data network, translated into countless dialects, yet the meaning never changed. And so the story endured, not of conquest, not of revenge, but of understanding. The universe had learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology or numbers, but its heart. That when they said home, they meant everything. And when the humans said, "You attacked our home," the galaxy finally understood why no force, no matter how vast, could ever truly conquer them.